the reason it wasn't happening is the last president negotiated a year earlier that he'd be out by May 1st and that in return there'd be no attack on American forces. That's what was done. That's why nothing was happening. But the idea, if I had said, I had a simple choice. If I had said, we're going to stay, then we better be prepared to put a whole hell of a lot more troops.
New sound of the president speaking over on ABC. President Biden blaming former President Donald Trump for the problems in Afghanistan. Let's bring in Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. He's the author of the upcoming book, Beyond Biden, out November 2nd, available now for pre-order at bookstores everywhere and wherever you buy your books. Mr. Speaker, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Okay, so we've heard him blaming President Trump before, but now he's blaming him for the timeline. And he said, look, you know, Donald Trump had the timeline. I couldn't undo that policy. And yet, over the last 7 months, all he has done is undo different Donald Trump policies. So apparently that's the only one he couldn't change.
You know, the tragedy of all this is he's still going to be president for more than 3 more years. Nobody in the world is going to trust him. The Europeans are watching him abandon them. Remember, there are, I think, 100,000 Europeans in Afghanistan. The Afghans who fought on our side are watching him abandon them. He has surrendered to the Taliban. The Chinese are openly saying this means that Taiwan will now be gone because nobody is going to trust Biden to protect Taiwan. The damage he has done, and I don't know whether it's senility or ignorance or arrogance, but I do know that the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs should both resign. They accepted a plan that was militarily impossible. You cannot give up Bagram Airfield and think you're going to keep the embassy. This is insanity. And the president gets elected by the American people, so if he wants to do something totally crazy, that's a problem for Congress to deal with. But we don't have to tolerate a Secretary of Defense and a Chairman of the Joint Chiefs who accept and implement. They should both have threatened to resign. They accepted and implemented a plan which was militarily impossible. Surrender to the Taliban, keep the embassy, give up your only combat center in the country, and think it's going to work somehow? I'm appalled. I'm frankly more appalled by the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. I expected Biden to range between senility and arrogance in the way he operates, but you don't have to accept that out of your senior appointees.
Well, Joe Biden also blamed the intel community. He said there was a breakdown in intel. He said there was no consensus. They said that what has happened in the last 11 days would happen, you know, maybe by the end of the year. You know, maybe the problem is nobody's telling him what's going on, and it appears he's not watching television because it seems like there is bipartisan criticism across the political spectrum at what he has done. He just said, Mr. Speaker, and we're going to play the soundbite, he apparently doesn't even know what's going on at the airport. Listen to this.
A pandemonium outside the airport.
Well, there is, but look, but no one's being killed right now. God forgive me if I'm wrong about that, but no one's being killed right now. We got 1,000, somewhere 1,200 out yesterday, a couple thousand a day, and it's increasing. We're going to get those people out.
But we've all seen the pictures. We've seen those hundreds of people packed into a C-17. We've seen Afghans falling.
That was 4 days ago, 5 days ago.
What did you think when you first saw those pictures?
What I thought was we have to gain control of this. We have to move this more quickly. We have to move in a way in which we can take control of that airport. And we did.
Yeah, he wants it over quickly. That's why they had that deadline of the end of the month. But, Mr. Speaker, he said nobody's being killed around the airport. That is not true.
Look, Ronald Reagan used to say that the problem with liberals wasn't what they didn't know, it's what they knew that wasn't true. And I think that's what you're seeing here. I think President Biden has, in his own brain, blocked out any information which would challenge what he decided. I mean, look, he's got a bad problem. He made the decision to surrender to the Taliban. That decision is not working very well. He can't walk it back. I mean, he can't announce tomorrow morning that we're going to send 40,000 troops, recapture Kabul, and begin to destroy the Taliban. So he's got I think in his mind, he's going to live through this horrible tragedy. We'll come out the other end, and he'll get to go back and talk about COVID and paying off the teachers union and things, passing a $3.5 trillion socialist big government bill. I mean, the things he likes to do. And I think he's just trying to endure and get beyond this. And of course, the price of that endurance is thousands of people, tens of thousands of people who are being trapped in a country where you have a basically terrorist organization now running the government.
And we just heard from one of them, a guy named Haroon. He's trying to get his family out and can't do it. Newt, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.